Let's cut to the chase. Trap is a movie directed by M. Night Shyamalan, released on August 2nd, 2024, to a stunning... Oh god, that's low! To quickly sum up the plot, a father-daughter duo go to a concert for a musician known as Lady Raven. Wow, she looks familiar! I wonder why. Unknown to both of them, the concert is actually a trap for a serial killer known as the Butcher. And, okay, if you saw the trailer, you know that the killer is Cooper. It's barely even a spoiler anyways. I watched this film on the 8th in the same month it was released with my stepdad and my aunt. Coming out of the theater, I honestly really liked it, and I still do. I was also left really confused. As I thought about it more and more, rewatched and took notes while forcibly showing my mom the flick, I realized that while I was engaged with the film, there were certain striking flaws with it that tampered with the experience. So in this video, I'll be talking about the flaws in the film while also rewriting it. Why am I rewriting it? Because I think it'll be fun and I want to exercise my writing skills. Just a heads up, however, this isn't a hit piece on any of the cast and crew. I think the folks who made Trap are creative, brilliant people who put a lot of soul into this movie. This is just me being critical of something I know has good moments, and something I'm weirdly obsessed over. If you like the film as it is, that's fine with me. Don't let me taint the love of your media. Think of my criticism more as coming from a place of love and desire for better art, rather than a place of pure malice. Even if my delivery of the criticism is wrapped in a layer of anger. Lastly, before I forget, I feel it's best if you watch the movie before watching this, as, let's be real, I'm not recapping the details of the plot. Go watch it now, the film is literally on so many streaming services I can barely list them all. I await right here. All caught up? Good! Grab your tickets and try not to get caught red-handed. Let's enter the auditorium.
I will press it right now if you signal them. Save him. Catch me. Save him. Catch me.
Cooper Abbott. Cooper McFreaking Abbott. This man has caused so much psychic damage to my skull. I have so much to say about this man. For starters, Cooper is both a dad and a killer. When he's around others, he acts how a loving and stable person should, almost to the point of overacting. When he's killing others under the nickname The Butcher, he's calculated, cold, and someone who follows what his urges tell him to do when the coast is clear. He's also someone who puts up with social interactions and tries to manipulate them in order to get his way, and always tries to keep his two lives separate from each other no matter what. To put it bluntly, Cooper isn't a good person, but as shown with his relationship with Riley, he can do good things. I should also mention this before I forget. Cooper has mommy issues! Yippee! We basically learn that his relationship with his mom is pretty bad, as she's implied to be an authoritarian parent. Other than that, we don't get much for his crybaby backstory. The actor playing this 6-foot serial killer is Josh Hartnett, who you may know from films like Oppenheimer, for example. This dude is perfectly casted for this role. Props to Josh, though I do think he will need back surgery from how much he's carrying this movie. However, even with all that praise towards the token mentally ill male, I do have issues with him. Firstly, his arc. During the first month the movie was released, Rotten Tomatoes posted a video where Josh talks about the psychology of his character. He states that when it comes to which part of Cooper, the father and the butcher, are the true core of him, Josh explains that both sides of his character are true, but details that Cooper's fatherly side originated simply as a persona, and that the love he gave his daughter is basically him overcompensating in order to hide his true colors, which, of course, in the film, evolves into an actual human love for his family, or at the very least his children. Cooper's arc is realizing a part of him is capable of caring. While the climax of his development is impactful, I feel like the middle sections of the film fail to further give depth to the character's journey, merely giving us the skeleton of it. This is because the film focuses more on the cat and mouse game between him and the cops and only fully dives into his psychology around the last third of the film. This pacing issue therefore takes a bit of wind out of what could have been a potentially fascinating arc for a character we don't usually follow. Second, Mans keeps getting away with everything and the cops are doing nothing. Let's not beat around the bush. Cooper's got plot armor and plot convenience on his side. It starts when he first speaks to the vendor Jamie, who quickly spills the beans on the operation. Okay, off to a rocky start. Then it starts to get ridiculous. He sets up a distraction in the food court area by dumping extra oil into the fryer and cranking up the heat, and no one notices. This all climaxes in the most plot armor fueled writing decision I've ever seen when he gets into a confrontation with the cops, and none of them, I mean none of them, even try to shoot him dead. Instead, they tase him, and I'm not exaggerating here, a total of 3 times! Yes, I counted. They tased him with a police taser 3 times rather than blowing his head smooth off, and he fought them tooth and nail while being high off his ass on the drugs he used on his victims. Look, I'm not saying you're required to kill him, but this is just incompetent. Cooper isn't challenged by the film. It's spoiling him rotten. This is all worsened by the fact that Cooper's main weakness is psychological, not physical. A flaw that is only exploited in the last third of the film. If the cops actually did their job, they would have given him the Asuka breakdown Evangelion treatment in a single heartbeat. The police overall feel like a missed opportunity to raise the stakes for Cooper, making escaping the auditorium into a life or death situation. It would show that they're willing to do anything to take down the butcher, even if it bordered on cruelty. I do have one final critique towards Cooper's character. In the scene where Raven tries to subtly convince Cooper's family that he's the butcher, she tells them that the butcher has behaviors and habits associated with those of organized offenders, which I can agree with. What I don't agree with is the fact that the film assumes that Cooper might have obsessive-compulsive disorder. OCD is enlisted as a trait in organized offenders. Not only that, but Cooper doesn't act out of stress like the disorder suggests. He acts out of a desire for control over the smallest of things and the desire to feed his urges, all because he feels fundamentally broken. I have more to say on this aspect, to the point where I am thinking of making a video simply yapping about Cooper more in depth, but I'll leave it at that for now, since I don't want to go on a full-fledged rant about the ramifications of letting a pop star give a serial killer an armchair diagnosis in front of his whole family this early into the video, so we're moving on. How do we deal with all of this? Well, for the first issue, it's mostly a problem regarding pacing. We're keeping locations strictly in the auditorium building, just to keep things organized. I'm thinking of dividing the story into 2 acts. Act 1 being the concert itself, and Act 2 being anything post-concert. The second, get rid of the plot armor. Have his actions backfire and the police tighten security in response. Have his urges to kill or his hidden desire to be a good parent get in the way of his goals. Have him get shot in the leg so we can find a genius way of getting rid of the blood trail. Just nerf him, please. It would make the movie less methodical in some regards, but it would add to the engagement of the story and fuels Cooper's arc, as heightened stakes make his decisions have more impact. Also, the cops will be more likely to psychologically mess with him. Lastly, for the OCD stuff, don't suggest that Cooper has that, because it's clear he's more likely to have some sort of form of sociopathy or psychopathy. As for his character, Cooper's baseline personality will not be changed that much. I feel like how he's written fits well with the story's themes, and it's just interesting in general. That said, I'm going to adjust his arc a tiny bit. Cooper is so stuck in this negative perspective he actively indulges in, to the point where he tells himself over and over that this second life is just a mask. If I lose it, I won't care. I'll pick up a new mask and move on. And yet, that lie starts to slowly collapse. Cooper's overall arc will still be the same in that he learns that he does have genuine care for his family, yet it's clear that he doesn't want to admit that he's merely human. Also, at one point he drops an F-bomb. Anyways, I'm keeping that in. Only one, though. Now, for his design, I think the overall fit for him in the film is well done, giving him a look that makes him stand out while also blending him into the crowd. So I decided to simply add and adjust his fit. For his normal form, I added details to his wedding ring, a silver band with a sapphire gem in the center. When researching, I found out that the bracelets Cooper wears are the ones his kids made, and I both love and hate this detail. I'm altering the look of them to be like candy bracelets, jewelry commonly seen in raves seen in concert culture. These types of homemade bracelets are easy to make at home, as the materials are pretty cheap. I also gave him more pronounced eye bags. I don't see Cooper having to help his sleeve schedule. I changed up his sweater to be a bit more simpler, while emphasizing the red hue underneath the jacket. I still like the Jack's Torrance-inspired sweater, but to be honest, I'm not drawing that. Fun fact, originally I wanted to add the detail of little wolves onto his sweater, but I didn't know how to incorporate it, so I just simply put a wolf charm on his bracelet instead. And yes, the wolf stuff is very intentional. The film has this animal motif going around, whether that be the ravens, lions, or butterflies placed within the scene. It, however, does not do much with these motifs, so I decided to make them a little more pronounced by applying a specific animal to each character. For Cooper, while lions are a very fitting symbol for him, I mostly opt for wolves, as not only are they animals known for their tight-knit packs, much like lions, but also there's that famous saying which states the idea of a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I feel like considering who Cooper is, I think that's very fitting. Speaking of which, I made his butcher form! I feel like despite his skills in hiding his crimes, his neat freak tendencies, and his hyper-focus on keeping his two lives separate, he easily gets messy with his kills. He is taking bodies apart after all. That's gonna end up becoming a mess no matter which way you slice it. Also, when seeing the butcher in action, I feel like he is the type to taunt others, both those that are on his trail and just in general. I really wanted to make his eyes in this form have some uncanny life to him. This is a contrast with his eyes in his normal form, which are pretty much dead. It shows which one comes naturally to him. While he can be a caregiver, he is simply a butcher, a hunter in his blood. Finally, I let him keep his tattoo. Honestly, all I'm thinking of is the fact that he got a wrist tattoo. Do you know how painful that is? Like, is Cooper a masochist or something? Okay, on to the next character, and possibly everyone's favorite.
So if I were to come to somebody's house and say, yo, your house is extra fried.
Don't ever say that.
Why? Extra fried is better than crispy.
Stop. I'm not teaching you any more words.
I'm gonna be real here. I love Riley. I will do anything for this child. Riley is an energetic, highly social girl who has a love for dancing, music, and her father. Ariel Douglas is such a good pick for her character. Her skills in acting are peak. Also, as I was writing this, Ariel got nominated for the Logie Awards for Best Supporting Actress for a TV show called Wolf Like Me. Like, oh my god, I'm so proud of her! Honestly, I don't think it's much of a bold take to say that Riley and Cooper's dynamic is the heart of the whole movie, which makes the later decisions of the film all the more painful, but we'll get there. Their dynamic in the film feels so real and authentic that it almost hurts, which is helped by the fact that Josh is a dad IRL and also ironic, because Josh states he didn't want to infuse any of his life into Cooper. You know, considering how utterly deplorable Cooper is. Back to Riley. I will say, considering that Knight made 2 films where the kids in the story took a bit more of a center stage, probably more, though I'm not versed in his discography, Riley doesn't have a lot going for her in this movie. I feel like she's a tether to keep Cooper from escaping without moral ramifications. Yes, she does have an arc in this movie, that being letting go of harmful relationships, but much like Cooper's, it feels like a skeleton of an arc. Even so, her arc is more centered around her ex-friends rather than her own father. Keep in mind that we know very little about them other than the fact that they tend to leave Riley out of their social circle. Whether or not you see this as a flaw, her character isn't bad. Riley is good at a supportive role. I just wish we could have seen more of her perspective. This is where her new arc comes in. That being one of trying to find independence, not knowing that this means letting go of her father, of their relationship. Yes, she's able to make her own decisions, but overall, Riley will be doing what her father tells her to, stuck in the middle of doing whatever you please and obeying your parental figures that most teenagers go through in life. I have this little visual idea that before her arc starts, she's basically clinging to her dad as they enter the auditorium, even if it's something small like holding hands. It's framed as being adorable, of course, but it overall shows that she understandably still has some growing to do. Much like in the original, as the story goes on and Cooper starts to show more and more red flags, Riley can't shake the feeling that something is off with him. However, in my rewrite, we see her perspective and she has a bit more agency, albeit for brief moments. This not only gives Cooper more pressure to escape without getting caught, but also gives Riley a chance to grow as a person, rather than feeling like a plot device. She doesn't stay in the dark for long. Eventually, she will find out about the sting operation hiding underneath this pop facade. She will find out who her father truly is. When that happens, what will her choice be? To hold on to that connection until the bitter end, or simply to let it go and release it? Not with grief, nor pleading. And before you say, Nova, isn't the main POV Cooper? Wouldn't giving Riley an in-depth arc defeat the established idea? And to that I say, yes. However, I will discuss my thoughts on the movie's POV on an upcoming section. Be patient with me. Some small changes. I honestly only have two. Firstly, no, Logan will not be a part of the rewrite. Riley is now an only child. I'm sorry. I don't know how to include him into this without it feeling forced. Secondly, I aged Riley up to about 14 to 15 years old. In the original, she's basically 12. I'm doing this simply because for an arc about independence, I feel like it would be more fitting to have her be a teen for this role. For her design, I actually made a few passes. The first one specifically had details that deviated too much from the original. While I did like it, I felt like I went too far from the source. After some tinkering, I made this. I traded in the more colorful plaid layer for a deep purple hue paired with blue and red lines, since I felt like the main color of purple showed how she contrasted with Cooper and her mother, more on her later. I redrew the Lady Raven t-shirt, adjusting the hue so the design could feel more harmonious and less cluttered with too many colors. I adjusted her jewelry, redesigning and giving her a slap-on bracelet she probably got from the concert, changing her ring a little, and changed her necklace to have this cute rabbit charm on it. I overall made her animal motif be that of the rabbit, as they're usually symbols of innocence and agility. I changed her phone case, mostly because we didn't get a good look of it in the film. I traded in the black shoes for dark purple lace-ups, while still keeping the yellow laces. Also her eyes. I'm aware her actress has blue eyes, but honestly, in the genetic department, I have no clue how a brown-eyed man and a green plus brown-eyed lady made a blue-eyed baby. That is, unless Riley's eyes are actually green, and I'm stupid. So, as a sort of weird compromise, I made Riley's eyes have the green and brown hues of her parents, but a sliver of blue in the bottom. Now, on to the next character, and oh boy, I do have a lot to say about this diva.
It's like our dreamer girl is Riley. Where is Riley? Riley, you wanna come dance with me?
Lady Raven, where to begin? So, Salika. She's the actress for Raven and also helped with the production of the music for the movie. Honestly, the music's pretty good. Her vocal work on each song is amazing, and the instrumental tracks are professionally constructed to feel like a solid blend of R&B and pop. Also, I just need to state this right now, the costume design for Raven is absolutely stunning. Show-stopping even. The way the outfit moves and how flowy the garment is. The white paired with the silver that glistens in the spotlight is amazing. It's so beautiful! So yeah, Salika's cool. Now would be a great time to mention that she's related to M. Night! Talk about a plot twist, am I right? There's no way of sugarcoating this. Not only is Salika related to M. Night, but is also, and I say this with sadness in my soul, the weakest actress out of everyone in the cast. I feel like an asshole saying this, but it's true. On her own, she is clearly rough around the edges, but overall fine. And then you put her in the same room as Josh Hartnett, and it's clear that he's on a very, very different level than she is. Like, no joke, the film does exactly that, and expects you not to see the difference, which is night and day! We'll circle back to the whole nepotism thing later. We first need to address how the film tackles plot points, or POVs, if you're terminally online. Throughout the film, we are stuck in Cooper's headspace. We follow his lead, we see his perspective and thoughts. In most stories, this can be used to great effect, especially when it comes to unreliable narrators. Yet, this lack of perspective change can be a handicap. The downside of using it for this movie is that it makes the majority of the side characters feel underbaked, due to how we don't get to see their perspectives and how little interaction there is between Cooper and other people. To be fair, Cooper isn't the social type. Plus, it does constrain how much foreshadowing you can include. Don't get me wrong, Cooper should stay the main character. However, brief shifts in perspective can benefit the story you're trying to make. Plus, it would make the pacing of the last third of the film way more easier to follow. I should also mention the few times our POV does switch, because, surprise, it does. But the application is weird. It actually switches 3 times. The first time for a quick gag between Jodie and her mother, the second for Raven's POV, and the third for Rachel's. The quick cutaway gag with Jodie's mother doesn't stay for long to be too jarring, and the scenes with Rachel are slow paced, thus making it easier for us to ease into her perspective. Plus, this happens after we witness a scene of Cooper kidnapping Raven, so her scenes therefore create a calm, a moment for the viewers to breathe, or at least for a while. So, what does Raven's POV add to justify its existence? Yes, the main thing we should be worried about is Raven's safety, but how it's all executed is wrong. To switch to her perspective feels jarring, no matter how much the film tries to hide that fact in. Oh god. Don't get me started on the first thing she does once she enters the Abbott's restroom. Seriously, Diva? You're going to use the power of Instagram Live to find location of a kidnapped victim? Instead of, oh, I don't know, damning the police about this bullshit or jumping out the window? Because yes, she's in a restroom with a window, and yet she is staying put while Cooper, the homicidal maniac, is a room away from her having a shouting match with his wife! I will say though, Allison Pills and Josh's acting, chef's kiss. Amazing. 10 out of 10. I love when 2 amazing actors pretend to be a toxic doomed married couple in an IKEA. Believe me when I say, I don't have any issues with Salika as a person. The reason why I have issues with her being in the film and the matter that's presented is that I feel like the narrative is forcing her to be in a more active role, forcing her to become the shining hero fighting against evil, when in reality, she was doing good as she was before the last third. Making her one of the main reasons for Cooper's downfall takes away from the potential of a narrative gut punch if that blow came from Cooper's wife, or if you want to narrow it down, Cooper's daughter. Riley is the literal heart of the film. She's the only thing that can bring out Cooper's humanity by merely existing. It would have been so much more devastating if Riley found out about her father being a serial killer on her own, rather than Raven telling the whole family of his identity with such awful line delivery. I'm sorry, I need to be honest about this. The delivery here sucks. There's a reason why people are pulling out the nepotism card the moment Raven comes on screen, because her forced presence uppercuts the plot plot and potential themes of the movie in such a way that makes my brain hurt. I'm not saying she should get killed off early or become a bland one-dimensional trope or anything like that. I do genuinely like Raven, and I do think Salika is a good musician, but like, come on, girly! Leave some room for the others to slay! This all isn't helped by the earlier issue of the side characters being one-dimensional due to the limited POV. Raven, unfortunately, included. All we see of her character are her strengths. No flaws for her to work on. So when she's given the narrative spotlight, it becomes clear that there's not much going on with Raven in terms of nuance other than her core character. That being a kind pop star, a trope that we've seen executed better in other pieces of media. She's damaging to the film only because the script didn't accommodate for her having a major role. Yes, I am aware that she's supposed to be the opposite of Cooper in terms of beliefs. And yes, we do see her be fearful of him. But fear isn't a flaw, it's an emotion. And while I don't mind the whole opposites thing, you gotta have more than that to make a character. So, here's what I'm thinking. I alluded to this in the section where I talked about Riley, but to keep it short, the story's POV will center more on the Abbott's family, but overall will still have the main POV be Cooper. Perspective shifts will be more spaced out and seen throughout rather than in the later half of the film, and each shift will be used to further the arcs of each character. Now, as for Raven herself, I'm gonna have to make some changes. I'm going to revamp her personality, yet not ruin the main core of her character, that being her kind nature and desire to do good, as well as make her purpose in the film smaller while also giving her an arc of her own. For my version, she'll be a kind showstopper on stage, similar to how she is in the original film. However, off stage, she's guarded, professional, and doesn't like socializing with fans, but is willing to put up with it. She doesn't hate her fans, but simply values privacy. Maybe she had bad experiences with her fame, or has heard horror stories of parasocial fans during her time in the music industry. Whatever the reason, she always keeps her guard up. I wanted to include this specific change in order to further the themes of duality within the story. And what better way to do that than to show how even famous people can be very different off stage, even the kind ones. I'll still include the bit of her backstory of her father leaving her at the age of 7, as that's the reason she made the song Release. Similar in the original film, due to her already dealing with that past demon, she's become a person who doesn't let her past anger blind her. Riley and Raven's relationship will be sort of a push and pull that over time grows into a sisterly bond, as Raven learns to be open with others, rather than, simply Riley's idol being fully open right off the get-go. Raven will also have a strong sense of justice, as she's trusting in the police to do their job, while also not being afraid to step in and do what's right in her eyes, which is why she agreed to turn her concert into a trap. Raven will still be a foil to Cooper, in the sense that Cooper lies to keep his crimes out of the public, while Raven quote-unquote lies, as in she puts on a persona to be what the audience wants her to be. Cooper keeps up the facade for his own benefit. Raven keeps up a facade because it's an extension of her creativity, and therefore an extension of herself. And while it's exhausting and frustrating sometimes, she's willing to be Lady Raven because it inspires people, like Riley, to carve their own path and let go of the pains that hold them back. After all, ravens are symbols of ancient wisdom, beauty, strength, and transformation. Also, yes, that will be her animal symbol. This whole thing just writes itself. For her concert design, I barely changed anything. Honestly, her outfit, I'll probably put the image up right now, this one is my favorite costume out of the film. It is nothing short of majestic. All I did was just adjust and simplify a few details, like the fishnets and earrings. That said, this was the most difficult to draw, mostly because of how complicated her costume is. The silver details took a while to wrap my head around, but oh boy, do I love how they turned out. I love how I drew the translucent fabric and the face. Her face! She looks so pretty! Looking back on the original fit, however, It's only now that I noticed that there's an undergarment holding the silver metal piece together. I don't know why it took me this long to see it, but whatever, outfit still slays. For her casual outfit, I decided to go for a design of my own, you know, spice things up a little. For this, I went for a hoodie sweatpants combo. Something she could get a professional photo shoot in, but also would be comforting enough for a workout. The overall main priority of the outfit is comfortability with a hint of style. The colors for it are sampled from her stage look to make the outfits cohesive, but I decided to trade the complex detailing in her stage outfit for a simple checkerboard pattern. What can I say? I like checkerboards. Her hair, rather than being let down, is now tied up into a ponytail. She got her cute purse for storing any useful items like her asthma inhaler, and she looks ready to save lives and catch killers. One tiny detail I want to point out with this piece is that that's not her phone she's holding. Overall, I'm happy with both of these designs. I don't know, they feel really fitting for her character. Okay, we got one more character to go. The show is almost over.
If I'm guessing correctly, you went back on your own.
And I broke in.
But there's nothing in there, Rachel.
Rachel Abbott is played by Allison Pill. Allison is known for her roles in other films as well as TV shows. Notable examples being both Scott Pilgrim adaptations, the Star Trek Picard series, and the limited Hulu series Devs. However, if you're a Rhino Stew fan, you would know her as the teacher singing about the Eternal Engine and wielding a literal gun in the Snowpiercer adaptation. Honestly, an iconic moment for her career. Allison is, in my opinion, underrated and is just as talented as Josh. She brings in some great performances for how little she is on screen. And for the few moments we see her and Harnett together, you can really tell that the two are just in their element. Now, this is usually where I cover her character in detail, but I feel like we need to go on a well-needed detour. Let's look at one of Knight's other films, and one that I feel tackles plot twists better. The Sixth Sense! I swear this is necessary. All you need to know about the movie is that a struggling child therapist helps out a weird kid and shit hits the fan in a hurry. I'm not going to say the two main twists, partly because spoilers and partly because you most likely already got spoiled for you. But when they do hit, it's sudden, but it makes sense by the end because they were both foreshadowed consistently throughout the film, often using scenes that, without future context, were viewed as average, thus enhancing future watches. And that's not the only way to foreshadow a twist. Another way is by having the viewer ask questions via small moments of character interaction, or symbolism in the narrative, which can further enhance it. But back to the Taylor Swift escape room. With how Shyamalan is an artist, weaving in a heavy plot twist with dramatic weight, you expect Trap to know this. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't. So it turns out Rachel was behind all of this? No, I am not pulling your leg. Basically, pre-concert, she got suspicious of her murdery husband, which makes sense. Man's played by Josh Master Harnett. So to quell her suspicions, she followed him to one of the safe houses he uses for his crimes, only to find evidence of said crimes. So, naturally, after clearly seeing evidence of a murder scene her own partner committed and realizing that he's been doing this for Lord knows how long, she planted evidence into a crime scene in order to lead the cops to him. Wait, what? As you can tell, there are some very glaring problems here. And no, I'm not talking about the shirtless Cooper. Get your rat-infested mind out of the suit. The plot twist of Rachel being in cahoots with the police and aiding in the arrest of her husband is good in theory, but is executed terribly, as her decisions in getting him arrested are reckless and, let's be real, illegal to do, no matter how much I support this woman. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be a grounded setting, yet this and the plot armor her soon-to-be ex-husband is wearing isn't doing any favors. All of this isn't foreshadowed or hinted at in any capacity until the last act starts. This, therefore, makes the twist more predictable and come out of left field, akin to whacking the audience with a metal pipe. The fact the police know of Cooper's past and that Rachel let Raven, a pop star working for the police, into her house feels like clues that are too obvious to be considered clues. They feel like arrows pointing directly toward the twist rather than suggestions that something's going on. It doesn't really help that unlike Riley and Cooper's dynamic, we don't know much of Rachel and Cooper's relationship, nor Rachel herself, because she's barely in the goddamn film, which makes the twist less impactful on an emotional level, and makes us have difficulty figuring out how she came to the conclusion to plant a receipt in a crime scene. This, in turn, ties into the issue with POVs we talked about earlier, because it all leads back to the goddamn POVs. If the twist is going to work, she needs to be in the story more. If we want the confrontation between her and Cooper to be more impactful, she needs to be in the plot more and interact more with the cast. You can't just have a character appear out of nowhere and have them smack you with an undercooked twist. That's not how this shit works. For the love of God, don't treat your characters like plot devices. But I think the worst part is, the police need to get Cooper into the auditorium somehow. And before entering, he didn't seem like a fan of Lady Raven's work. That fan would be Riley, Cooper and Rachel's daughter. And Rachel knew that the concert was a trap, but Riley didn't. Do I really need to spell out the unintended implications? Rachel aided a sting operation by letting her own daughter become nothing more than bait to lure in a dangerous serial killer who's also her father, with not a single person objecting to any of this. Yikes! At first, I decided to cut her out of the story since I had no clue how to implement her. But here's the problem. If we take Rachel out of the story, how would the cops know about Cooper's past, let alone that he was coming to the concert in the first place? Keep in mind, Cooper's the type to not let any part of his two lives touch. So, how would any of this even happen? TLDR, we can't take her out. Luckily, I have ideas. I'm going to introduce her in the first act rather than the middle of the film. Here's what I imagine. On one occasion, Cooper will get a phone call from Rachel at an oddly inconvenient time. Despite this, he still makes conversation with her. This interaction would feel human, thus making us learn more and connect with a killer, as well as fleshing out their dynamic. I imagine their relationship to be wholesome and romantic. Well, at least until she figured out that he might be a serial killer, then in that case, it becomes a doomed romance. My favorite romance blend. As the story goes on, she will appear more and more, becoming a bit more of an essential side character, working for the cops and trying not to make Cooper suspicious of her. I will admit, I'm making the twist a bit more obvious, akin to an oncoming train ready to run you over, but depending how her character is written, the audience could be led astray, making them think that she's simply in the dark or just naive about what's going on. The audience could think that she's on the same boat as Riley, when in reality, she knows more than she's letting on. Either that, or make it a twist similar to that of Omni-Man in the first season of Invincible, where the twist is something the audience knows, but not the characters, thus adding a natural layer of suspense. Her personality, I'm keeping the whole cookie-cutter, kind, motherly figure type. However, I'm adding in more details to this. Rachel would be a foil to Cooper, but while Raven is a foil in the sense of morals and worldview, Rachel is a foil in the sense of personality. Unlike her husband, who usually acts kind as a way to keep himself out of trouble, her kindness is always genuine. While Cooper is cynical, Rachel is optimistic. While he's selfish, she's selfless. You get what I'm throwing. It's opposites attract until someone dies. Yet, while her optimistic nature is beneficial in some areas, what I want to do is also make it a flaw. In this context, she sees the best in others, almost to a fault, even when the signs are pointing to that person being straight up dangerous. And when she inevitably does notice the signs, they stick out in her mind. She at first reasons that Cooper was having an affair. Then the small clues stack up more and more until they're just enough to give her a glimpse into his true nature. Rather than her first instinct being to plant a receipt into a crime scene, she uses what clues she found and reported her suspicions to the police. After a single meeting with Dr. Grant, the sting operation was born. Even so, Rachel is still hesitant on the whole thing, a part of her still clinging on to the hope that someone else will be the killer, that Cooper is the person he showed himself as, a loving, caring husband, not a cold, heartless murderer. Because how can you accept something like that? How can someone who's fallen in love with the facade accept the reality, shattering the illusion? Rachel's arc is that of accepting reality, even if it's harsh, for the sake of doing what's right and protecting those you love. She has to fight a conflict between a life she can never return to and the life she's stuck in. I think that, depending on how I write it, this inner conflict can interfere with the sting operation, mostly in the fact that Rachel doesn't want Cooper dead, thus limiting the strategies she'll be able to use. That is, unless the police just ignore her. Also, I changed her career. Instead of a 5th grade theater teacher, she is now teaching music theory to stone-tired college students. I mean, hey, at least the pay is higher. God, I hope so. As for the plot hole, I'm going to try to incorporate it into the film itself. In this case, Rachel will be responsible for letting Riley get close to a suspected murderer, yet doesn't warn her daughter, either because the police see Riley as a way of leading the butcher into a trap, thus implying a bit of police corruption, or because she chose to blind her to the truth, thus keeping the plan in motion. The latter could imply that she is willing to throw a bit of caution to the wind when it comes to doing what's right, and would add in recklessness as another one of her character flaws. This would also fit an idea that Josh Hartnett keeps sharing in interviews when asked about his character. He talks about a book called The Psychopath Test, a journey through the madness industry. He states that in the book, at least 10% of the population have psychopathic tendencies. Now, to be fair, the book came out in 2012, and recent studies have proven that this percentage has altered quite a bit. Not to mention, our knowledge regarding psychopathy and sociopathy have expanded, with books like Sociopath by Patrick Gage. I mention this because the idea he states fits well into what I'm suggesting with Rachel's character. She's a woman who's kind and loving, but depending on what writing choices we go for, can show hints of skewed but grounded morals, thus adding an extra layer to her character. And if we go for the corrupt police idea, that also works well with the extra theming, since it shows that not even the justice system is immune to those with ill intentions or psychopathic tendencies slipping through the cracks. Either way, both ideas would fit into the theme of duality. Out of every Abbott's member, Rachel's getting a full-blown overhaul. Her original design isn't awful per se. I think her outfit is cute, but I mostly want to put my own twist on her design, since I'm putting her in a more prominent role. I was actually struggling with her fit. I wanted something that was casual, comfortable, but not boring. I was talking with a friend about my struggles until I found an image of a girl with a white cardigan on Pinterest and got inspired. So I gave Rachel that, and also made the cardigan a light blue to contrast Cooper's red sweater. I gave her some more comfortable shoes to move around in that still had a hint of heel to them. I adjusted her necklace to have a charm shaped like a lamb, as well as give her small silver piercings. Finally, I put some detail into her wedding ring, adding a Burnham ruby on the center of it. Her animal symbol will be the lamb, an animal that contrasts the wolf. While lambs are seen as meek, easy to slaughter, they're animals that also symbolize sacrifice and the triumph of suffering. And considering her journey, I feel like it's a fitting match. Oh my god, I'm done writing this! I'm free! So yeah, hope you guys like what I made here. I had fun putting this whole thing together. Plus, unlike my school-required essays, this is the first essay that I actually enjoyed writing, which is a victory in my book. Feel free to share your own critiques and thoughts on the original film, or critiques on my ideas, as well as any of, your ideas for a rewrite in the comments below. I really appreciate that. Just, be reasonable and civil. Oh! I almost forgot. The ending of the movie is pure ass. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you, Starlights, in the next one.
It's really not that serious, Anya.
Really? You should tell it to that one before he wins the fucking game again! I'm just sorry I actually know how to play the game and I'm at least good at it. You don't know how to play it right! You fucking cheat and you steal all the money off the fucking table! Cheat at it, guys!